Hello ladies and gentlemen, Steven here with another fragrance review. Thank you so much for watching. Today we're going to be taking a look at a fragrance from the designer house of Paco Rabanne. This is one of their most recent releases, of course, right next to the original release Invictus. This is a 2013 release and it's a flanker of their 2008 very popular best-selling 1 Million. This one goes by the name of 1 Million Intense. So again, released in 2013, the perfumers for this fragrance have not been made available to the public, but being that the smell does bear a lot of similarities with the original 1 Million, I would take a gander at saying that they're probably the same perfumers. So Christophe Renaud, Olivier Pichot, and Michel Girard. So it was a collaborative effort, and I would say that the formula has just been tweaked or modified by a bit. Now, when I first came across this fragrance in Macy's, I was kind of weary and skeptical because I usually don't give into the whole intense or extreme or noir label on fragrances, because for me, companies use that as an excuse to market the same fragrance in a different bottle or a different colored bottle and just get away with selling the same thing to unsuspecting consumers. Now, with this fragrance, on the other hand, I know that another version of it already exists called 1 Million Absolutely Gold, which is a pure parfum version to the original. So then I already had expectations going into it that this was going to smell different. But when I smelled it in Macy's, all I could think to myself was, wow, this smells just like 1 Million. And then I went home and of course I did a side-by-side with my bottle from 2011. And then it turned out that they actually do smell quite different. Now, of course, there are a lot of similarities in the way that they smell, but there are also differences, and I'm going to touch base on what those are without really making this a comparison video. Now, of course, a company like Paco Rabanne and with a best-selling fragrance like 1 Million, they do have the potential of creating fragrances that could be perceived as money grabs. Of course, there's another version of this fragrance called 18 carats, which I think was nothing more than the original 1 Million, but it's just packaged in a different bottle. I think it came with a crown or something like that. So with this fragrance, I think it's an intense version that wasn't needed, that wasn't necessary. I think that the original 1 Million is already intense as it is. It already performs so well, but I do like the fact that they changed the composition somewhat. Now, I'll let you know which one I think is an improvement, but next up, let's take a look at the presentation for 1 Million Intense by Paco Rabanne. 1 Million Intense is available in two bottle sizes, 50 milliliters and 100 milliliters. The one that you're looking at here is the 100 milliliter size, and this fragrance is only available in Eau de Toilette concentration. Now, it's marketed as Eau de Toilette Intense. I don't think that's any different from Eau de Toilette, to be honest with you. I think that's nothing more than a marketing device, just something to hook you and make it sound more appealing. Now, first up, let's take a look at the box. Over here on the front, you have this cardboard sleeve. It almost appears to have like this lustrous, almost lacquered finish to it. You have the model who did the 2008 advertisement for the original 1 Million. You have the name of the company written here in the middle. And then on the reverse side of the sleeve, you have an image of the 1 Million Intense bottle portrayed on the back there. Now, this sleeve comes off to expose the box, which actually resembles the original 1 Million box quite a bit. Over here in the middle, you have the 1 Million logo, and then right below it, you have the Intense designation, name of the company down here at the bottom. And then down here at the very bottom, you have some more information like the barcode and the serial number and stuff like that. On the back of the box here, right below the ingredients, you have the Paco Rabanne logo and Puig fragrances written right below that. The Spanish company Puig bought out Paco Rabanne following the success of 1 Million in 2008. And over here at the very top of the box, you have the Paco Rabanne logo once again. Now, as far as the bottle goes, it's supposed to resemble a gold bullion. Of course, it looks very similar to the original 1 Million bottle, and the only difference being that over here in the front, it has Intense written below the 1 Million logo. Now, you have some more information written down here at the bottom. It's even more information written down here at the very bottom. And on the side, the only other difference is that it starts off gold and then it transitions into this clear finish down here at the bottom, whereas the original 1 Million is just black on the side. So that's really the only other difference between the two. And over here at the top of the atomizer, you have 1 Million written in there. The atomizer actually works pretty well. It has a good distribution and really nice mist. I actually like it a bit. There's no cap for it, of course, but that's because it's so oddly shaped that you can't really put a cap on it. But as far as that goes, that has been the presentation for 1 Million Intense by Paco Rabanne. If you've smelled the original, I think one of the first things you're going to notice when you smell 1 Million Intense is how similar it actually smells to the original. That's the same thing that I thought when I first smelled it in the department store, and then I bought it and then I took it home, did a side-by-side comparison, and then I realized how different it actually smells from the original. I think 1 Million Intense is similar in the sense that it does open up with that blood orange note. It's that blood mandarin orange note, which is citrusy, not in a conventional way. It's not traditional. It does smell different, and I like that about this fragrance. It doesn't remind you of your standard aquatic fragrance, even though this isn't an aquatic fragrance, but you know, it doesn't have that like aura of familiarity that a lot of men's fragrances have had in the past decade or so. So this one is different. It stands out. It's not overly sweet. You get a blast of cinnamon in the opening, but it's not a very spicy cinnamon. It's more sweet than it is spicy. I think it's going to attract a lot of people, and it's definitely not going to like sting your nostrils. It's not like that type of cinnamon. I think it's sweet, and then it quickly transitions into this floral fragrance, and I think that this is where the intense designation really gets a chance to shine, because I think that there was a creative risk taken in the original by utilizing the florals that it did, and especially for a fragrance that's marketed for men, you're really taking a chance at not a lot of men liking that fragrance. And I think with this fragrance, the intense version, I think that that creative risk was finally fulfilled, because in the original, yes, it is floral, but I do think that the florals are quite transparent, quite translucent. It's almost like you can smell right through them. With this fragrance, on the other hand, it's much denser, it's much richer. It's like they were stripped, the florals that is, of their transparent or translucent quality, and there's this added opacity. It's much more denser, much more noticeable, and overall, I think just much more fulfilled. And I think in that sense, it does kind of live up to that intense name, but I think that the original was already intense, you know? So this one doesn't perform better. I think that a lot of people think, oh, it's intense, it's going to perform better. I think they performed exactly the same way. I just think the original didn't have as much going on as far as the composition goes. This one does have a little bit more going on. Now, I know it's floral. There's rose listed as a note, rose absolute to be precise. I don't get too much of that. I can definitely sense like a rosy quality to it. I think a lot of it could also be pink pepper or pink peppercorn, which has a rosy smell, but like a spicy, almost culinary twinge to it, if you will. I know a couple other notes that are listed as mid notes, I believe, in this fragrance are saffron and cardamom, which really serve to give this fragrance like a light or airy quality, although it's not light as far as performance goes, but more of like an airy, almost culinary quality. It's spicy, but not in a black pepper you're gonna sneeze type of way, almost like a culinary sweet floral way. Now it does dry down to this sweetness that I think persists very well from the opening all the way into the dry down. There's a vanillic sweetness in the dry down. There's also a coumarinic sweetness, which is very common among fragrances. Coumarin is a crystal that's found in tonka bean, and it has a vanillic smell, but it also has like this nutty, almost balmy and buttery smell at the same time. So I get a little bit of that. I know iris is listed as a note that could be what's giving a buttery smell. And also I would like to note, patchouli is listed as a note in this fragrance as well. I'm not getting a lot of it at all. I'm barely getting any. There's a sandalwood dry down in the fragrance that I don't think is overly present. I think it's more about the citrus qualities, especially in the opening, and the floral heart. I think the floral heart is really the dominant player of this fragrance. So last up, in terms of compliments or complaints, I think this fragrance is much more likely to land you a compliment. I think that whatever the original did is just amplified in this fragrance. I don't think it's much sweeter. I just think it's much more floral. And I think that the florals still retain that androgynous quality. So if you think that it's going to be feminine because it's more floral, definitely don't think that. I would encourage you to shy away from having those thoughts. I think that this is still very much so a fragrance that's appropriate for a masculine crowd. But I think that women could wear this fragrance too. So it kind of has like the shared quality about it that I like as well. I think it just adds on to the versatility of the fragrance. And lastly, have I worn this fragrance outside of testing? Yes, I have. I've been enjoying it. I know you can't tell because the bottle is not transparent, but I have put a dent in it. I've been wearing it a lot for the past couple of weeks, and I've been enjoying it thoroughly. So I would highly recommend you check it out, especially if you're a fan of the original 1 Million. So again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Last up, we have the rating. Thanks again. First up, we have uniqueness and overall smell, and 1 Million Intense earned from me a 7 out of 10. I do think that this is a pleasant smell. I can definitely see this luring and attracting a lot of people. I think there's nothing really offensive about this smell. In some ways, I do think that it's an improvement on the original just because there was a creative risk taken with the original, but I feel like it wasn't fully satisfied. So post the modifications on this fragrance, I feel like they really did get a chance to satisfy that creative risk. I think that this is a fragrance that's fun, it's outgoing, it's playful, it's definitely going to attract a lot of people. I've gotten a lot of compliments on it, and fixatives were used very successfully. It lasts a very long time. I ended up giving it a 7 out of 10, very far from being a bad fragrance. I actually do quite enjoy it. Next up, we have longevity. I ended up giving this fragrance a 9 out of 10. Now, this is eau de toilette concentration, so 4 to 6 hours is expected. This one lasts on my skin about 9 hours. I know people who say that the original lasts on their skin 12 plus hours. 9 hours for an eau de toilette is above and beyond what I would expect it, or how I would expect it to perform. So I ended up giving it a 9 out of 10, and that would satisfy my criteria. Next up, we have projection, and I gave this fragrance a 10 out of 10. This radiates beyond an arm's length for 5 hours plus. That's crazy projection for a fragrance. I think this one does very well as far as performance goes, and even with 3 or 4 sprays, I think you're bound to get noticed. Especially if you're walking into a room and somebody gets a smell of your presence for the first time, this is certainly going to make an impression on someone. So I gave it a 10 out of 10, excellent performance. Next up, we have versatility, and I brought it back down to a 7. I think that even though it's marketed as a men's fragrance, I can definitely see women pulling this off just because it's minty and because of the added presence of the florals and because of the sweetness. I can definitely see a woman wearing this fragrance comfortably. Now, as far as social scenarios go, I would probably reserve this fragrance for a night out. If you're going to a bar, if you're going partying, if you're going clubbing, if you're going bowling or something like that, just like a fun night out with friends or possibly even a date, I think this is an excellent contender for that. I probably just wouldn't wear this to like a professional environment. Definitely not a job interview or a meeting, especially if you're trying to impress a potential employer or give a good impression. I think that this fragrance might actually work against you. But I do think that that sweetness is definitely for somebody who wants to express themselves, who has a playful personality. If you like the original, please check this one out. So as far as versatility goes, I think it can also be worn all year round. I think that the compositional nature allows this fragrance to be worn in the hotter weather, whereas the performance really allows this fragrance to be worn in the colder weather. So it's really like a jack of all trades. And then last up, we have presentation. I already told you how I feel about that. I like the presentation. Some people think it's kitschy, some people think it's tacky, but then again, when you compare it to other bottles, especially ones that have been coming out recently, it goes to show you that it's not as tacky as it could be. And I think that it's a decent atomizer. It doesn't have a cap, so that's a downfall, but I think you can get a really good grip on it. I gave it an 8 out of 10 for presentation, and then that brings this fragrance to an overall rating or an average score of 8.2 out of 10. So guys, thank you so much for tuning into my channel and watching my videos. That was my review of 1 Million Intents by Paco Rabanne. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to let me know. Have you tried this fragrance? If you have, please let me know what you think by leaving a comment down below. Again, this has been Steven with another fragrance review from Adolescence. Thanks again.